It's a great pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful conference. My topic today, as you can see, is the Anti-Zionist campaign in Poland, 1968, which is also sometimes referred to as the Polish March 1968. In the following 10 minutes, I will try to achieve two things. First, I want to give you a concise overview, maybe a bit short, but I hope to be as concise as possible, of this portentous year and explain how the Anti-Zionist campaign of 1968 was in fact an anti-Semitic campaign. Given the very restricted time frame, I will be as brief as possible, as I said, and confine myself to some basic remarks. And I will not elaborate, for example, on the internal dynamics within the Polish United Workers' Party, which is a very relevant part of the campaign nevertheless. The second point goes beyond the mere historical facts. While I believe that the anti-Zionist campaign in Poland is interesting in and of itself, I also believe that analyzing it allows us to deepen and extend our understanding of anti-Zionism as an anti-Semitic ideology. As I said, I have to skip the preludes to the events of March 1968, so the first few boxes on my timeline here, and I'll start right away with the 8th of March 1968. On this day, students were protesting at the University of Warsaw because two of their colleagues, both of them Jewish, were expelled from the university for participating in demonstrations for free speech. The police brutally dissolved the demonstrations in Warsaw, which only amplified the outrage of the students, and the protest soon spread all over the country. The political leadership got nervous. Party members were mobilized, and the media disseminated propaganda against the students. Nothing out of the ordinary, one would say, in a socialist country like Poland at that time, when it is confronted with demonstrations for free speech. However, this changed pretty quickly. 3 days later, on the 11th of March, two newspapers published a list of the instigators of the protests. This list only contained the names of children of prominent Jewish party members, and such names that were obviously identifiable as Jewish. The party newspaper, Trybuna Ludu, only printed the list and the usual denunciation of unpatriotic students without further commenting on the content of the list, even though it was obvious to everyone. The other newspaper, however, Słowo Powszechne, which you see a scan of the article here, wrote a whole story on the Zionist conspiracy. The 10 Jewish students on the list constituted only the vanguard of the Zionist plot in Poland. This article set the agenda and the tone of the whole campaign that was to follow. In the next 10 days, 250 articles were published, most of which incorporated the Zionist conspiracy theory, and many of which were blatantly anti-Semitic. Jews were physically assaulted on the streets, harassed in public and at home, and thousands of them were dismissed from their jobs, losing their income and their social standing. In hundreds of public meetings and factories, in party offices, even in sports clubs, all over Poland, anti-Zionist resolutions were passed, and people, party members and non-party members alike, condemned Zionism for its attacks on the Polish nation. One representative resolution from the beginning of April read, and I quote, "We demand a complete removal of Zionist elements and other enemies of our socialist reality from the political, state administrative, educational and cultural apparatus, and also from social organizations. Those who in their nihilism and cosmopolitanism poison the spirit and hearts of the youth should lose their influence on it." And that was just one of hundreds of resolutions that were passed at that time. If the campaign hadn't had such tragic consequences, one could even find comedic episodes in it. In the early phase of the campaign, a participant of the Congress of Warsaw Journalists made the telling comment, and I quote again, "One cannot exclude the possibility that, as a result of unsatisfactory information, the people do not know what Zionism means and exactly whom one should remove." This obviously was only half true. They might not have known what Zionism was, but they certainly knew who the Zionists were. And so, even though the anti-Zionist campaign only lasted a few months, as you can see on the timeline, its upshot is dramatic. 9,000 Jews lost their jobs, 8,300 lost their party membership. Out of the Jewish population that was no larger than 25,000 pre-1968, at least 12,000, probably 15,000, maybe as many as 20,000 were forced to emigrate. The official campaign against Zionists effectively destroyed the Jewish community of Poland. In this regard, the anti-Zionist campaign in Poland attests to how easy it is to cloak anti-Semitism in the language of anti-Zionism. I now come to the second point. I think for any theory of anti-Semitism, it's crucial to ask, how are the Jews, or rather, how is the Jew represented in anti-Semitic ideologies, and consequently, how does the anti-Zionist conceive of the objects he or she hates? From what I've said so far, it seems that when it comes to the anti-Zionist campaign in Poland, it's not really different from traditional anti-Semitism. We have the conspiracy theory, we have the public paranoia, we have anti-intellectualism, anti-cosmopolitanism. So these are all classical elements of anti-Semitism. But I think there's more to it. While the campaign started off as a crackdown on students, it soon became an eminently political witch hunt. The old anti-Semitic images, by which I mean the identification of the Jews with the murderers of Christ, or the identification of the Jews with capital. So those images only had limited applicability under social conditions where the salience of the political was apparent to everyone, as in socialist Poland. Another aspect of anti-Semitism, however, rose to new prominence: the identification of Jews with the abstract state apparatus. And I think there's a connection to Karin's talk yesterday, where she said that Israel stands for the abstract state, the artificiality of sovereignty. The political conspiracy has always been a quintessential element of modern anti-Semitism. Just as the Jewish dominance of the economy has been an anti-Semitic stock in trade. The anti-Semites obsessively seeks to identify the culprit in the economic and in the political sphere. He seeks to make the abstract concrete, for example by projecting money as such and value production as such onto the reckless Jewish profiteer. Now, I believe that the campaign in Poland shows that the integration of Israel into the anti-Semitic ideology facilitates this ideological process in the political sphere. In the anti-Semitic mind, the political conspiracy is made tangible in Zionism, and consequently, the political conspiracy is attacked in Israel's lackeys, or alleged lackeys, the Zionists, because they perceive the imagined Zionists. So there is a twofold identification at play. First, the equation of abstract political order, abstract political power, abstract state sovereignty, and Israel. And second, the equation of Israel and imagined Zionists. I believe that this is a crucial element in the campaign in Poland. It illustrates how productive the anti-Zionist ideology can be within the tradition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism localizes a hitherto indeterminate conspiracy. It took less than a week to mobilize hundreds of thousands of Poles against the fifth column in the nation, the fifth Zionist column in the nation. I think that the chimera of Israel, a concrete political object, contributed to the efficacy of the campaign. The hateful vigor of the anti-Semites often correlates to the cohesion of their delusion. Anti-Semites want their objects to be easily identifiable and ready at hand. And so, the Zionist bogey is identified with Jewish world dominance in the political sphere. Here, and with this I want to close, lies the historic relevance of the campaign, which transcends the political conditions of Poland in 1968. Thank you.